Welcome to the Valley Today, a public service presentation of KAIL TV, and now in high definition. How healthy are you? Do you need to lose weight, exercise more, quit smoking? All good questions. Stay tuned to find out these answers. We'll speak with Dan Fee, up next on the Valley Today.
And welcome to the Valley Today. We have the distinct pleasure of being with Dan Fee of Duker Fee Physical Therapy. And Dan, it's a pleasure to be with you again.
Good to see you
again. And not
again.
only is this a rehabilitation area for physical therapy, but it's a wellness center too. And
Correct.
that's some of the things we're going to touch on today. Thank you for granting us this opportunity.
My pleasure.
And I want to start this conversation off by saying that Fresno hasn't been so lucky lately with a few connotations that it's been associated with. One of them being the fattest city in the country. We are also designated as the drunkest city, the car capital ripoff, poorest air. But with the wellness center and physical therapy, we chose the weight problem. And I think that this is poignant for the new year. As we discussed, everybody makes a resolution. Perhaps you could give us a few pointers on how to get to that goal. But interestingly enough, you have to lead us into the discussion with some applications that are practical that got us into this mess in the first place. So Dan, could you help us out and guide us in the right direction, please?
Absolutely. You know, we did this program back in February, or a program on physical therapy back in February.
Yes.
And it's interesting because back in February, I was about 60 pounds heavier.
60 pounds.
And so, you know, the other thing that you probably can't see, but I actually brought my blood work with me. And this shows that in February, I was 7.6 on the A1C test, which says I was diabetic. I was a type 2 diabetic. And then in May, same test, 6.0, which takes me out of the diabetic range. And that's pretty awesome. I mean, diabetes it's a huge issue.
Yes, it is a huge issue, and I can relate to some degree myself because I have to periodically see the doctor, and they do ask me about my weight, and they check my HDL, my LDL, and so forth. And there's been times where he says, you know, you don't want to bump up against this ceiling called pre-diabetic. So yes, I just wanted to elaborate that blood tests do reveal a lot of things.
They
Could
do.
you go further with yours?
It's an interesting thing because, you know, with that, you know, the other thing, my wife says I don't snore anymore either with weight loss, but you know, that's
Okay.
a different issue, and that's her blessing, not mine necessarily.
Yes.
I never noticed, but anyway, it just makes you feel better to lose the weight. I mean, they're going to probably show you a picture of what I used to look like at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
And you know, in that picture, you're going to see that the only thing I was looking for was another place to sit. But I can also tell you now that on my Nike running program, which I use for walking, I've logged over 350 miles. And,
Goodness.
you know, my goal for next year is 1,000 miles of walking.
Okay.
You know, which is really about 3 miles a day.
I think there was a funny thing in a show called Modern Family where the guy had gotten a treadmill given to him by his wife, but he wanted to keep it in the bedroom. She didn't like it in there, so they made a deal. If he walked the distance from where they were living in someplace in California to the Canadian border, he could keep the machine in the bedroom, and he succeeded on Christmas Eve or something like that.
You know,
But I know that exercise is paramount, and your facility here encourages that with the
we do.
physical
And
therapy aspect. But you have some guidelines or steps as to how we got into this mess and how we can get out of it.
you know, obesity is epidemic in the United States. 67% of the Americans are either overweight or obese. And I mean, think about that. That's 2 out of 3.
That's more than
2 out of
half.
3. And if you walk the malls or if you walk anywhere else, you see it. I mean, you look at it, you can see it.
Certainly.
You know, the other issue though is sometimes people, they come in, and we've had people come in and they say, well, I'm okay. And they thought they were okay because they were the smallest of their group.
Oh.
They were
okay.
still obese, but they were the smallest person that they hung out with. And so they thought they were fine. In fact, they thought they were good because of that. But, you know, the interesting thing, you know, is it may not be your fault either, because we've been biologically programmed this way for 10,000 years. When we used to be hunters and gatherers, we used to go out and we used to look for our food, and we'd kill it or we'd find it, and we had to eat it because we didn't have any storage devices.
Sure.
And so you eat it, and so the storage device is your body in fat. And so you would expend it then looking for the next meal. And so it was equal in, equal out, and we were good. And so the weight stayed constant. But you know, we don't have to hunt and gather as much anymore, except at the supermarket maybe, and fight the lines and
fight
Black
the
Friday
lines.
and whatever. But you know, it's we don't have to do those things anymore, and so therefore we're not expending the energy. Weight loss and weight gain is very simple.
Yeah, I can see in ancient man it was a counterbalance of gaining the nutrition long enough to find that next meal and expending the calories necessary to compensate. But because of our conveniences and our lifestyles now, that exercise regimen that the doctors constantly harp on, and you physical therapists do too, is to keep moving.
Well, you know, I enjoy my daily walk. I walk with my dog every morning 2 miles every morning, and then I try again in the evening. And the thing is that for me, you know, I view it as walking before the heart attack instead of after.
Sure.
And there's so many people out there that they have bypass surgery or they have some sort of surgery, and the next thing the doctor has them do is start walking. And you know, I'm trying to do that ahead of the time, and so I'm trying to do that first. But
so, well, you said 67% of Americans are in the obese category.
We do.
And you know, and that's a sliding scale. I know that there's bureaus that if you wanted to get a government job, say for instance in police or fire, they have they pinch the inch kind of scale where they check your body index.
Well, I heard it was grab a slab.
Grab a slab would be appropriate too. And you know what? I've seen some of those figures for people. Height has a factor involved in that too, and it's surprising how that scale really makes you humble when they say what you really should weigh.
We know a lot of people want to blame genetics. They do. And you know, it can play a part. If you got two obese parents, then a good chance you might turn out to be that way or be predisposed to be that way as well. But if you're tall, you know, two parents are tall, then they're predisposed to be tall. But it's not necessarily the determining factor. You can make choices that make a difference in your life. And you know, but you have to want to. You know, in Fresno right now, we're not doing good. I mean, I got some numbers on Fresno. You know, by the way, California is number 21 in the
number of states and how we rank in this whole situation.
So
and that doesn't do good for Fresno when we were pegged as the worst.
And statewide, you know, Fresno is worse than the statewide.
Yeah.
So we're sitting here, we're in the overweight category, you know, we're heavier than the state average, and in the obese category, we're heavier than the state average. You know.
Okay, so there's got to be other factors. You mentioned something about the fishbowl effect and so forth.
I did. In fact, I don't know if you can see this. They're probably going to show it, but there's a fishbowl, and we're caught in the middle. And you know, we have toxins, we have radiation, we have unhealthy food, we have unhealthy air. There's not a day that goes by that you don't see, okay, it's a burn day. And why is it a burn day or not a burn day? Because of the air. And you know, I think I read there's. And I can give you the facts on it, but there's like 400 million metric tons of pollution every year. And, you know, we're a big part of that in the U.S. I think we do like 25% of that, even though we're 5% of the world population.
I would say that, for instance, this summer, I didn't get out and exercise like I would like to have had because we had so many days of poor air quality, or we had the Aspen fire or the Rim fire and smoke was spewing into our valley, so I didn't get out and do what I was supposed to do those days. I probably maybe stayed even or gained a pound or two during this summer.
Fresno has a great program. It's called Walk with the Doc, and it's once a month, and we go out and we go to Woodward Park, and we actually walk with doctors. And normally there's 7 or 8 doctors at least that show up, and they're of different categories, and they walk with you. And they talk to you about anything you want to talk about. I mean, it's almost like a house call because you can talk about your problems.
Oh my gosh, to get us something free advice from a doctor nowadays would be marvelous.
And it's the Fresno Madera Medical Association that puts that on. And so if somebody wants to go look that up, they can. But you know, it's once a month, and what a great thing. And we talk about different things, and we talk about walking, and we talk about air quality, and that's what got me there when you said that.
Yeah.
Because they actually told you what time of day to walk, because there's some times of the days that are better. I mean, early in the morning is better than
before everything gets all stirred up.
Before everything gets stirred up.
Sure.
And so you look at that, but it's a great program.
Yeah. Now, okay, we have these criteria that kind of paint us into a corner to some degree because of our location and our lifestyles. We agree that man has gotten a little lazier over the hundreds of years.
I didn't agree to that.
Well, I'm going to say that I have, and maybe I fall in line with the general population, but are we being deceived to some degree by the food manufacturing industry?
Well,
Because look, we are what we eat, and we are told to eat certain ways, and I think the United States government recently changed their food index table of what you mix to have a nutritious.
Yeah.
But are we getting what we need from our manufacturers?
It's interesting. In April 8th, 1999, representatives of the food industry, Nestle, Coca-Cola, Pillsbury, and some others, they actually got together, and their food scientists wanted to talk about the declining nutrients and things in our food. And one of the executives just said, it's not our responsibility. Just much like the tobacco industry. It's not our responsibility. And so, you know, in the 80s, the soda industry started using high fructose corn syrup,
Yes.
which is addictive, by the way. Okay?
Okay.
And they started using it because they could produce 64 ounces for the same cost as 8 ounces. And that's, you know, they're not necessarily our friends. You know, they're looking at the bottom line, and they want to make money with their product. And they do all kinds of things. You've seen resizing of bottles. You've seen, so I mean, if they'll resize a bottle to give you less for the same price, why will they not look for an ingredient that costs less
Yes.
to give you the same price, maybe? But their
Right.
cost is less, so they still make more money.
I understand, and you know, you've kind of, in the last few years, you've started to not hear the word supersize me anymore. And I have noticed it going out and dining for a while there in the 90s and the early 2000s, the portions were hanging off the sides of the plates, and I don't know if it's due to the economy and the cost of foods, but some of that stuff started to shrink down a little bit, and healthy alternatives are being offered. I know personally that if you can take the weight off, your joints feel better, but there's so many other things that are affected by weight gain: gallbladders, gout, varicose veins, your liver, your heart working harder, and so forth. Now that we've addressed some of the causes or reasons, and I know we haven't covered them all, what are some of the solutions, Dan? What would you recommend in terms of it? Because I look at you as a guy that I interviewed roughly a year ago, and you've shagged off quite a few pounds.
I
And
have.
obviously you had a method for doing this. I try it the old-fashioned way, but I go up and down.
Well,
What do you
know,
recommend for us?
You know, actually, we used a program, and we used a program called Take Shape for Life is what we use. But it focuses on 6 meals a day. You know, 5 predetermined meals and 1 that you fix yourself. And so you really don't have to count calories, don't have to count points. It was just an easy program for us to do. My wife got me started. I didn't really want to do it at the time. You know, I'm like another diet. Oh my God, you know. So, but it was just easy.
Well, now
And
you've
so-
arranged a kind of a pop quiz for
I
our
did.
viewers, because if they are paying attention when watching this, maybe they could grab a piece of paper and judge or grade themselves. And I'd like you to run down
You
the
know,
list. You have 10 questions, I
And
believe.
I'm borrowing this from a book called
Okay.
Discover Your Optimal Health by Dr. Wayne Anderson.
Discover Your Optimum Health.
It was actually #1 on the bestseller list at Barnes & Noble for a while, #4 on the New York Times.
All right.
So, you know, if you have a pencil and paper, that'd be great. You know, so the first question, do you need to lose weight? And if it's no,
Yes.
5 points. If it's yes, 0. And if it's more than 30 pounds, a -5. Okay? Do you smoke? Never, add 5 points. Yes, -10. If you quit over 2 years ago, only -5. Do you eat breakfast? Every day, 5 points. Most days, 3 points. Occasionally, -1. Do you eat healthy? And when we say that, we're talking about, do you eat red meat? Never, 3 points. Occasionally, 0. Daily, -3. Do you eat vegetables daily? 3 portions, 5 points. 1 to 3, 3 points. Less than 1 portion, -2. Do you eat sugar and white starches? Never, 5 points. Occasionally, 1 point. Daily, -3. How many hours a day do you sit? If it's less than 1, 5 points. 1 to 5, 0. And greater than 5, -5. Do you walk 30 minutes a day? 10 points. Sometimes 3 points, never, -3. And on your weekend, how active are you? You play sports, 10 points. You walk your dog or ride a bike, 5 points. Sit on the sofa and watch TV, -3. Do you enjoy your job? Very much, you get 10 points. Okay, 0. I hate it, -10. I think there's something to do with stress there, maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Number 9, I enjoy time with my friends or pets. Every day, 10 points. Sometimes 3 points, never, -5. You need to get some new friends, I think.
Yes.
When I awake from sleep, I am very rested, 10 points. I feel okay, 0. Exhausted, -10. That's all 10 questions. And if you take just a few moments and tabulate that number, and if you have 35 to 50, then most of your choices are healthy, but you offsetting some of the beneficial effects by making maybe some unhealthy choices. If you're less than 35, you're already headed for sick or headed in the wrong direction. So you might want to look at changing some of the things that you're doing.
Sure.
You know. The other thing, Charles, is, you know.
And look, I was keeping count in my head
Did
while
you?
we were going through
You're
this.
better
And
than I
was
am.
failing miserably on a lot of those, and I know the reasons why, and I need to step up and do that. But you have another index that you
Well,
want to show me, and I think it has.
I do.
More
It's a body
involved.
mass index. It's just kind of a way to tell where you are to begin with.
Sure.
And by the way, they'll put up an email at the end of this thing, I think, so that anybody that will email me, I will send them one
Yes.
at no charge. I mean, but it gives you an example, and it's pretty colorful. And it just, you have your height and your weight, and you go across.
Oh
and
yes, the proverbial weight index chart.
you find out where you're starting, you know. And when I started, I was off the chart.
And I'm looking at where I am. I don't understand completely, but I do know that I need to lose some weight.
Well, if
I'm
you're in the
working on
red,
it.
you're obese.
I was in the red.
basically. Yeah.
And I don't feel like I am.
You know,
But
the yellow actually we call non-sick, and the green
Okay.
is actually good. So
Yeah.
you look at that. It's you know, it's interesting. It's like, do you want to change? You know, okay, maybe now we've determined where you are, and you're either headed in the right direction or not. But let's say you need to change. You know, the question is, do you want to? And you have to make that conscious choice. You know, when I was in college, I was in a management class, and it was mostly adults, and the instructor asked, and mostly guys, by the way, at that time, but the instructor asked, how many of you have your wife wake you up in the morning? And he says, how many of you get upset if she doesn't do it?
oh, okay.
You know, and then he said, okay, now, how many of you had that wife go down and apply for that job and interview for that job to get that job for you?
Oh,
You know, it's like,
that's
you
a
know,
head scratcher.
you're responsible, you know, for you.
Sure.
And so, you know, and I look at that because, you know, we have a program here that we help people lose weight.
Right, and I'd
Okay?
like to bring that up because you have this facility here that exposes the needs of keeping your body fluid and so forth, and you have been responsible for a couple of happy hours here.
We have.
And I call them, in your words, the healthy happy hours.
Yes.
Tell us more.
Well, you know, it's interesting, but I'm back to the responsibility.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I didn't mean to jump you there, but
It's all right, but we have a guy that we have a lady in Springfield, Illinois. Because if you got a phone and computer, we can help you. But we have a lady in Springfield, Illinois. You know, she every week she has lost something. Now sometimes it was like only 0.8 pounds, but you know, like last week she was 3.8, and she's in a program called Take Off Pounds Sensibly Tops. But she wasn't really doing very well at it. But she's been on this for about 6 months, and she's 55 pounds down. Okay. I told you earlier, we had a guy that lost 80 pounds. Okay. We also have someone who came in, lost 7 pounds the first week, came back the second week, gained a couple of pounds, and blamed his wife. And she blamed him. And so it was a...
the blame game was going, but
they
the
were
weight
back
was
and
coming
forth.
back.
That's right, because they didn't follow the program. And so the bottom line is, you have to want to do something, and you have to do it. And you know, we got January coming up, and you know the gyms can be full in January, February,
Everyone
and
has
March.
that commitment in the
You know,
beginning.
and
Come on a little closer to me here.
The thing about it is,
All right.
is that, you know, most people are going to do that out of guilt. You're going to feel like, well, I need to do this, or your wife or your husband's going to say, you need to do this, we need to do this, it doesn't matter. But you know what, that's not making a conscious choice to make a change. That's doing something because you're being prodded by guilt or by somebody telling you.
And we know that
and
doesn't last.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't have any staying power to be guilty about losing the weight. You got to really want to. So can we get into that subject I brought up?
Well, I don't know, but I got another thing
All
here.
right.
It's interesting. And I think it's page 115 of Dr. Anderson's book, Discover Your Optimal Health. It tells you a 10% reduction in weight is equal to 50% less chance of disease.
Makes sense.
And that's an awesome stat.
Yeah.
Okay, now what were your questions?
Well,
what
I
was your
mean,
question?
now you've got me in another way, because you just pointed out I could have I could have improve my blood pressure, I could improve my cholesterol, I could get rid of the possibility of being diabetic, I wouldn't have pains in my joints and so forth. So there's a lot of things that are playing into this factor, but I want to get from you, because you are the expert in the health and wellness and physical therapy. Where do we get this?
Not physical
and
therapy,
access?
that's my wife and daughter.
All right,
But
you're here every day. How do we get this information from you, and where's the opportunity?
Okay. Well, first of all, you're going to put up some slides at the end, I assume, with our name and address on it.
Yes,
and
we will.
Anybody that wants to call, we'll talk to. You know, and by the way, we are my wife and I are both certified health coaches. And so we actually are certified through Villanova University College of Nursing. And so we've studied a little bit, and we've taken some tests and done that. There's just so many things that you can get into with this. I mean, there's awesome things. It's you know, another thing people don't understand sometimes is as they age, they say, well, I'm not eating any more than I used to. But you know, when you come past 20 years of age, you lose a pound of muscle every year. So, let's see, how old are you, Charles?
I am
Never
50,
mind. He's old.
I'm old enough.
Let's say you're 50.
Don't want to get any older, but it's not going to happen.
Let's say you're 50, okay?
Yeah.
So that's 30 pounds that are 30 years times 70 calories a pound, because a pound of muscle eats 70 calories every day, whether you do anything or not, if it's muscle. So there's 30 times 70. That's 2,100 calories that you can't eat at your age that you used to be able to eat at 20 and stay the same.
Yes, you're right.
And I'm 65, so that's even more.
Yeah, our metabolisms aren't what they used to be. Well, Dan, you know, I want to get the people involved in communicating with you, and we need to know how to communicate with you about this, because this subject material, we could go on, and we perhaps will. This show will air in the new year, and maybe we'll do a follow-up to it.
Okay.
But I'd like to know how to get in touch with you for
Email,
the general public.
You know, I got dan@createwellness.us or danielfee@sbcglobal.net. Or they can call the office, you know, at 559-439-8151. You know, we actually have some doctors that are referring to us as well for weight loss.
Repeat that number again.
559-439-8151.
And that gets us to Duker Fee Physical Therapy and Wellness Center.
And just ask for Dan. So.
Very good. Well, you know, I appreciate the opportunity. As I said, when you get into this category, there's so much that you have to do to cover in terms of how we got there, why we're there, and why we're languishing in the situation we're in, and we need to wrap it up and be more dedicated. And I think you have the ability to point us in the right direction. And with some of the footage we have to show your progress, I think people will be quite happy and give you that phone call.